Hello, I'm Jasmine Ombwe. Welcome to Mwalimu Kipepeo podcast. Thanks for joining me for what I believe will be a very educational session. We shall be having a conversation about homeschooling and how possible it is for parents to adapt that unconventional line of learning in their home. Enjoy. In 2020, the global pandemic coronavirus forced the world to stay home for a very long time. Offices were closed, schools were closed, jobs were lost, and the entertainment sports bore the brunt of it all. In an effort to keep children busy, parents were forced to become teachers and educational managers in their own homes, bringing out talents and skills they never knew they had. When schools were opened, several parents chose not to take their children back to school, but instead dive into full-time homeschooling. My guest today is an educational expert who I believe is the best person to speak about this topic, considering the fact that she and her siblings were the very first people I knew who were going through this school system in the 90s. Manga Mulamba is not only my cousin, but the first of my many relatives to grace my podcast as a guest. She is excellent at what she does and a true example of what a great teacher is. Her colleagues and clients have amazing things to say about her work, and that is why I am honored to have her here today to share her knowledge with my listeners, even as schools start a new academic year. Hi, Manga. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please, let's start by you telling our listeners a little bit more about yourself.
Hi, my name is Manga Mulamba. First and foremost, I'm a born-again believer and follower of Christ, Jesus. I'm also a sister, I'm a daughter, and I'm an educator. That means I'm a teacher in the early years. I've also been homeschooled from the age of 11 all the way up through high school. Yeah, and I've worked in a few countries around the world, including my own. Yes, that's a bit about me.
So what exactly is homeschooling?
What is homeschooling? Wow. There are many different definitions, and basically most of us agree that it is a kind of method of educating your child from home. But I feel like homeschooling is a lot more than that, because if you look back at history, originally before organizations and institutions and different people started schooling children at monasteries or in churches or wherever or in colleges, the first form of education children received was from the home. They learned skills from their mothers and fathers, trades, and before there was even apprenticeships and all of that, schooling from home was the only method or mode of learning for many children. So I believe homeschooling is the original form of education, the original instructional method for education. And beyond that, as an educator, one of the things we learn is that the first teacher for any child is the parent. The home is the first setting where children start learning even from a young age. So homeschooling isn't just for academics. It's a lifestyle, it's a way of living, it's a decision that parents make that they will continue in their role as their child's educator, not just for the initial stages of life, but throughout a longer period.
What are the pros and cons that come with homeschooling?
So when it comes to thinking about pros and cons, it can't be really general. Not all the pros on one family's pro list would be pros for all homeschoolers. And not all cons are, again, generalizable and apply to all families who homeschool. But off the top of my head, I can think of a few pros and cons that could be generalizable, or at least that I've heard a few homeschoolers say, hey, these are the pros we found with homeschooling and these are the cons. So the first major pro is that the parents are now major decision makers in terms of their children's education. That means they get to choose the curriculum that their children use. They get to choose both, not just the written and read curriculum, which is now like a document that you can buy. You can buy the British curriculum, the Kenyan curriculum, any other curriculum you decide your children would use for academic education. But also the unspoken curriculum, which is something that each school has. So these are sets of attitudes, beliefs, and just the general feel of each school that goes without saying. It's the values that schools espouse. It's the morals that each school encourages children to live up to, all those different things. And so as parents of homeschooling children, you get to pick what you would like your child to learn academically, and also in terms of morals and values, and a lot more. So that's one of the major pros. Another pro would be, I know many people say homeschooling is affordable. Well, there's two ways of looking at it. You could say that that's a pro, that because you're not paying expensive school fees and buying uniform, that now all that can be put towards your child's education. It could be true. Again, this applies to some and not to all. It depends on the curriculum you choose. It depends on how much you want to enrich the curriculum. But yes, homeschooling tends to be more affordable than conventional schooling. A third pro would be that you get to pick and hone in on your child's talents and skills from a very young age. So when you see top athletes and other people or other children who are leaders and experts in their fields, the reason that they are where they are most of the time is that they homeschool in order to be able to use the extra time that they need to practice and really hone in on the talent or gifting that they have. So with homeschooling, because you're not set towards a specific timetable that has to be the same for each child within a class of 25 for a whole school of 100 or 200 children. What happens is, because it's more individualized, you can choose and change and adjust and allow your child the exposure to these experiences and the ability to really build on their gifting area. And that makes it possible for them to be a lot better at what they do and what they enjoy from a younger age. So that is the third pro. A fourth one would be linked directly to the third one, is that children get to be exposed to a lot more as homeschoolers. So, because homeschooling is so flexible, you could do it across countries. You could do it in and out of season. You don't have to follow the conventional school terms. You can decide that when the rest of the world is on Christmas vacation or summer vacation, you take a week or an extra 2-3 weeks in there to use it for education. And then when everybody else is in school, it might be the opportunity for you to allow your children to do something that a regular school term would not have allowed them to do. So yes, the opportunity for exposure and experience is greater because you get to determine the schedule that your child has, and it makes it a lot more flexible for them to be able to put in things that would not have been available to them would they have been in a conventional school setting. So let me stop on the pros there. On the cons, because pros, you can always add more pros. There's so many other pros and benefits to homeschooling. Really, the list goes on and on. And like I said, because it depends on each family's situation, there are many who go into homeschooling because their child needs remedial or extra tutoring. And with homeschooling, your child is afforded individualized learning. So they get to really pick up on areas of weaknesses and gaps in their education, and then even go beyond their conventional age grouping and do what they're able to from whatever age they are. So yeah, let me stop on pros now and move on to cons. So disadvantages in homeschooling. Now I'll have to say here, I believe that every disadvantage can be worked around. So that's me, the optimist in homeschooling. But it depends on who you talk to. Some of the things that I'll list as cons, some people really felt were cons, and so they had to stop homeschooling, or they decided that it wasn't for them. So the first con I hear, and it was a question I was asked a lot, or my family was asked a lot when we were homeschooling, is how do you get to meet other children? How do you get to socialize? So socialization, because the school is more than just an academic institution. It's a community where children can socialize with peers with other individuals, adults, and it's supposed to be a safe socialization area, if I could put it like that. So with homeschooling, because now you've taken that and you've taken that community, you've taken your child out of that community, and now they're in the home. So who are they going to socialize with? That's a con for some people. Another con could be that because homeschooling is such an individualized and child-centered model of learning, how will children then adapt to regular or quote-unquote conventional schooling after whatever period they've been homeschooled? I've heard many people struggle with now getting back to conventional education, or wondering how will they go into school after that. A third one that's tied to that con would be what academic institutions will accept homeschoolers, because right now in Kenya and in many other countries in the world, you need to have a school leaving letter or a record of all the different courses or subjects your child completed during their school, high school, or whatever it is. So that comes in play as a con when you look at people who do homeschooling without a standardized curriculum or without a specific examination body for their exams.
Now that you've had a taste of both worlds, what system would you recommend and why?
I believe wholeheartedly in homeschooling, not just because it was the original and authentic way of educating children and is still the first mode of learning for many infants, toddlers. The first place they get to learn anything is from the home setting, whether or not it's their mum or their dad or their nanny or their aunt or their brother or sister, whoever it is. Something that's becoming more of common knowledge, and the world is opening up to this more and more, is that children don't have to be in a specific room at a specific time with a specific person to be able to learn. No, knowledge can be passed on anywhere, at any time, by anyone, through any method. So why not do it from home? Why not be the ones to be proactive in our child's academic pursuit? Why not take it on and do it from home and give your child the best of what you believe you would want them to have, So that's from me as a homeschooler. For me as an educator, I say the same, but with a pinch of salt, because I know that not everybody will be able to afford their child the same level of exposure, quality of experiences, and all that another homeschooler would be afforded. That's true. And again, I know that sometimes parents are just picking this as a cheap way out. Let's homeschool. Okay, let's call a teacher. Okay, let's pay the teacher and they will do the work. No, that's not homeschooling. Homeschooling goes beyond having a child seated at a desk at home. So if that's why you're in for homeschooling, then you'd rather take your child back to school, because there's more to homeschooling than that. Definitely. Yeah, so from me as a homeschooler, go for it. Me as an educator, go for it, but don't mess up your child's educational journey, There's a reason why we're trained as teachers. There's a reason why we go through a lot, and continuously we're trained. Teachers undergo a lot of CPD, continuous professional development, to be able to do what we do. I mean, we're more than just passers on of knowledge. We are counselors, we're guides, and we're all that. And you see, the parents should be the first teachers. So if you're not going to be there to be the proactive counselor and guide for your child, if you're not going to be there to be involved in your child's educational journey, then please leave it to the experts and you continue with whatever you would like to pursue. But don't keep them at home seated at a desk thinking that they're homeschooling and that's it. Definitely not. You should not employ a teacher and just decide, I'm homeschooling and the teacher will take care of it. No, because that is definitely not what homeschooling is. Well, at least according to me. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
How does one control screen time while homeschooling?
You know what? I think the better question would be, how should parents control screen time, full stop? not just homeschooling parents, but parents in general, because devices are available to all children, not just homeschoolers. And the fact that children are now at home for, or have been home during this pandemic for a longer period, means that they've been on devices a lot more. So, firstly, as a homeschooler, second, as an educator, I believe that it's not just homeschoolers who have to worry about screen time. I think that any child at home with access to a device, a screen device, an iPad, a tablet, or whatever, a computer, or whatever it could be, this is a real concern. And I think that parents just need to be firm in their position as parents, as the authorities in the house. Take a stand, write down a list of rules, and you can discuss it with your kids. You don't have to be an authoritative figure saying, this is why and this is the only way. No, discuss it and come to an agreement and really look at the benefits and the side effects of having prolonged screen time, benefits of having minimized screen time, and talk about what are the different things you can do if you're not on screen. Talk to your children, get proactive, and find out maybe there could be a reason why your child is always on screen. Could it be that there's no playground around them? There's no children they can socialize with? It could be that there is an underlying reason why they prefer to be on the screen more than being around and, doing other things in their environment. So find out. It could actually be an opportunity for you and them to discover talents that they've not spoken about before. So apart from just looking at it as a homeschooling issue, because any child can be affected and really can really get lost in screen time. So I believe that it's just up to parents to set rules and to go over the rules with their children, and just ensure that the rules are followed. Make sure that you have a good schedule for adequate exposure to screen time and what you use the screen time for. There's a lot of online resources for internet safety. There's a lot of online resources for helping with scheduling screen time. Right now, with the information online, there's a lot you can do, and there's very unique and creative ways at taking on this issue.
How does one incorporate the social aspect of a child doing homeschooling within the system?
Now, with the social aspect of homeschooling, I've seen parents who get proactive and go to approach schools and find out, hey, can my child join in with the sports activities at your school, and what would it take, and look at the costs of that, and actually sign their children up for some sports sessions with children in schools, in conventional schools. Other parents have joined, and now there's so many of them, homeschooling communities in their location, in their locale, in the country. And because of all this, children are able to socialize. You find that groups go on field trips together, go to the library, go to different events together. And so that makes socialization within homeschooling much easier. So it's not how it was before, that there was maybe 30 or 40 families alone in the whole of Kenya. There's a lot of homeschoolers, and there's large communities, there's idea sharing, there's information, there's service providers who cater to specifically homeschoolers, and that's another way of finding children or finding other families who also homeschool. You could go to a service provider who provides services for homeschoolers. Those are co-curricular services. It could be academic services. And these are ways that children now socialize. There's quite a few misconceptions I've heard, but many of them stem around these two major misconceptions on homeschooling. The first one being about socialization, that homeschool children are not as social, are not as outgoing as their counterparts in conventional school systems. And basically people think that, because they were learning from home, they're not able to interact, they're not able to make friends, they're not able to talk with others. When it's quite the contrary. I find that most homeschoolers are able to interact with people even beyond their peer groups. They're comfortable speaking to adults, speaking to others from, different walks of life, and just they're able to easily adapt and follow social cues and be able to attend to conversation and actually join in conversations that most of their peers in conventional school settings would not be able to. So I find that that's a complete opposite with that misconception. The second one being that because a child is homeschooled, that they are not afforded the quality of experiences that a child in a conventional school setting would be afforded. And again, this depends on the family's specific situation and homeschool setup. But most of the times you find that families who homeschool actually ensure that their child is more engaged and more exposed to a lot more than what a conventional school would offer. And so, yes, this misconception is most of the times it's wrong. Another misconception is that homeschoolers struggle when it comes to getting back to conventional, or what others would term as regular school settings, because you can't homeschool through university. So when it comes to getting back to what the world considered regular learning, people think that homeschoolers struggle, and I beg to differ, because I found homeschoolers excel most of the times when they're put back into standardized or regular classrooms, that because of their ability to work and initiate work on their own, because of a lot of the skills that are built or encouraged whilst they're homeschooling, that homeschoolers actually do a lot better than children who are in conventional classrooms. Apart from that, because they've had a lot more time to actually go through not just subject matter, but even figure out where weaknesses and gaps are in their academic knowledge, homeschoolers tend to be more knowledgeable, or more have first a wealth of knowledge, and secondly more founded knowledge in whatever it is they've learned, because they've had time, they've had somebody there to be able to explain to them more in depth. If you think of it this way, in a classroom setting there are 25 children, and these 25 children go through the whole day together. Each lesson has maybe 40 minutes, and they might have maybe 4 or 5 academic lessons in a day. Now, a teacher will not be able to spend even 5 minutes with each one of those 25 children for the whole day, let alone for each lesson. Whereas with a homeschooler, because there might be 3 or 5 children in the family, but only probably one at a specific level. I mean, if you have multiples, then maybe 3 or 4 of them are learning at the same level, or at the same, so they're doing the same subject and at the same topic at the same time. Even if you have 3 or 4 children who are learning and using the same subject and being taught by the same individual, 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 is a better ratio any time than 25-to-1. So that means that those 3 or 4 will get more individualized and focused time on that subject with the instructor than they would have in a larger group. So what does that mean? Whatever concept they're learning, whatever is being introduced, or whatever they're doing, whatever knowledge is being passed on, there's greater chances of them understanding and moving on with that knowledge, using it, because they've had more time to interact with it individually as homeschoolers than they would have in a school setting.
So finally, what is your parting shot?
As a parting shot, I think it's important for parents to make the decision to homeschool by involving the rest of the family. Make sure that it is a decision that the children are on board with. I mean, you are at the final say, yes, as parents in your house, but the children should be engaged in this discussion of whether or not to homeschool, so that when you make the decision, it's not something you've just dropped into their laps, but it's something that they've come to an understanding and an agreement with you about. Secondly, investigate thoroughly the curriculum, the structure, and all that would be best to suit your family. Think about why you're doing it. Go beyond your initial reasons for homeschooling, and thoroughly investigate how to best get the most out of a homeschooling experience for your children, for your family. Seek experts, go into communities, go to people who've done this before and find out from them their journey. But remember, again, each person's journey is different. And that's why going to also experts, if you need the assistance, don't feel shy, reach out. They're homeschooling consultants. There are people who have helped people start homeschools. I've done so for a few families, and there are many others in Kenya, and it's possible to reach out, and information is available online. So don't be stuck as you make the decision. Find out what best suits you and your family. Apart from that, don't be cheap when it comes to resources. This is the time to really allow your child to be exposed and engaged to a lot more of rich experiences and resources and materials than they would have in school. So don't pinch pennies. And even as you're being thrift as homeschoolers, think about creative ways and unique ways to, get the resources or create the resources, or, work around whatever hurdles you have creatively. So if you're not able to buy desks ready-made from probably the furniture shop, think about, okay, can we have the children design it? Can we build it together? Can we engage a fundi? These kind of things are the experiences that build life skills in children. And these are part of the reasons why homeschooling exposes them to a lot more than just academic, education. So do it creatively as you do it. And don't be afraid to, take chances. But again, remember, this is for the best outcome of your child or children. So think about the future as you do what you do.
Of all the historical events that occurred on August 6th, the most renowned of them all is the Hiroshima bombing that happened in the year 1945, marking the end of World War II and the start of the Cold War. On this day, an American B-29 bomber dropped the world's first deployed atomic bomb over the Japanese city of Hiroshima. The explosion immediately killed an estimated 80,000 people and leaving another 35,000 injured. Tens of thousands more would die of radiation exposure. For that reason, Hiroshima Day is observed on August 6th every year as a reminder of that attack and to promote peace politics. This will be the 76th anniversary of the bomb killings. Now you know. I'm Jasmine Wamburi, and you've been listening to Mwalimu Kipepeo, the podcast. You can follow Mwalimu Kipepeo on Facebook. If you haven't yet, please rate and review this podcast. Join me next week for another episode of Mwalimu Kipepeo. Thank you for listening.